Welcome to Energy Dialogue of 2020. Not the same as we are used to, but I'm sure the same level of knowledge and inspiration. My name is Willie Silberstein. I will be the moderator of this day. And I was going to say the floor, I give the screen to Sigrid Karlsson, president of KTH. Sigrid.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to KTH Royal Institute of Technology. KTH is the largest and oldest technical university in Sweden with a scope in teaching, learning and research. We educate engineers, architects and teachers within the STEM area. About 70% of what we do is research. We build the strategy of KTH on the following values. KTH as an international and gender-balanced university having leading positions in digitalization and sustainable development. One of KTH's most prominent research areas is energy. Others are life science, transport, digitalization, industrial transformation and materials. And these all constitute KTH platforms for multidisciplinary research. And within these platforms, researchers meet, and researchers come from different subjects, and they meet around this common theme and exchange ideas and formulate new research. Sustainable Development and Agenda 2030 with its 17 sustainability development goals are a focus area of KTH. Being the driver for education and doing research within engineering and architecture means that we may take a huge responsibility to change and also develop new techniques in order to reach a future which is sustainable. It is within that context that the energy platform plays an important role. I would say that the energy transformation is one of the most necessary items that we can discuss today. It's also ongoing. It's an area that needs multi-angle approach and collaborations between universities and industry and society. I think it's one of the most exciting areas we can work today, and there are a large number of approaches. And that is obvious for me when I look at today's program. There is enormous amounts of possibilities and a lot of engaged researchers. But as always, when new techniques are developed and put in use, a system thinking is necessary. You need to ask questions such as, is this long-term sustainable? Is the various materials and components sustainable? What about renewable resources? Is it possible to recycle? What about release to air and water, etc.? Sometimes when new techniques are introduced without thinking the whole life cycle, that makes the situation better in one aspect, but far worse in another aspect. I'm convinced that today's participants are well aware of this. I'm really proud of all ongoing KTH research in the energy area and the number of collaborations within KTH, but also collaboration with the other universities and society and industry. Personally, I look forward to energy solutions for all people around the globe, without sacrificing a safe future for the next generations. I see that you have a really interesting afternoon before you, and I wish you all good luck with today's presentations and discussions. I'm looking forward to next year Energy Dialogue, where we might hope for a meeting in real life or maybe a hybrid version. Thank you.
Sigrid Karlsson, thank you very much for those words. And the time has now come to Lina Bertling-Tjernberg, Director of the KTH Energy Platform, and Christopher Duvig, Vice Director of the KTH Energy Platform. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Willie.
I cannot hear you, Lina. Your microphone is muted. Someone unmute Lina's microphone.
Thank you so much for this introduction. And I hope everyone can hear me now.
Lina, we don't hear you. I think help is on its way. No? So we need to make, we'll just wait. We can see Lina, which is half of the pleasure, but not all of it. And so soon we will hear both you and Christopher Duvig,
and you hear
Vice Director of the KTH Energy Platform.
Okay. Okay. Again, welcome everyone. It's very exciting to be here today. The format is a little bit different from when we booked this facility a year ago. Myself, Lina Bertling, and Christoph Duvig, we are here today. And this amazing museum, the Technical Museum of in Sweden, in Stockholm. And it's actually quite close by our campus. Well, today, of many reasons, we are here and you are with us digital. So it's my pleasure to give you a little bit brief introduction of the energy platform and to introduce the program. So please show my pictures. My first picture here, you can see a picture from, it's actually from the Energy Dialogue last year. And this is a normal format we had done. This is the 8th year we have the Energy Dialogue. And this picture here is taken from our campus. It's our student union building, Nymble, and we actually was fully crowded last year. And it's very nice to look back and see how things used to be. And as our president said in the introduction here, we hope we will be able to meet you live or physical next year in our Energy Dialogue. So please, next picture. So a very brief summary of my short introduction. I would like to start and stress that the research, the method we develop are to support in the development for sustainability. I would like to say a few words about the energy platform, which me and Christoph are leading. And then I would like to give you some brief examples on activities that we are doing. And finally, to introduce the program of today. And the main message is really that we are an inclusive network platform for collaboration for the energy researchers at KTH and also the collaborators we have at other universities with industry and governmentals. Please, next picture. So this is our home. This is the main campus of KTH. It's actually quite close to where we are now, the Technical Museum. It's on the other far end of this long street, Valhallavägen. And today it's very windy and maybe not as sunny as on the picture. So next page, please. So again, our overall goal is to provide solutions for the various energy and climate sustainability development goals. Next picture, please. So the format for the energy platform, they were created 10 years ago. And the main goal here is to stimulate and encourage new collaborations where we have existing excellence and we will create new solutions when we collaborate. We are around 450 researchers at KTH within energy, around 30 research groups and around 5 competence centers in 17 different research areas. And today in the program, you will see presentation from 4 of the energy centers that we work with, and also of 2 large research center program. We have a new organization within the platforms at KTH from last year. And the picture you see here is the team that work with the energy platform. Obviously, we could not take a picture this year. This is actually the second time me and Christoph meet this year physically and in good distance. For this year, we have had only digital meetings, but this is the kickoff meeting from our reference group from last year, and there have been a few new people that I mentioned here. KTH is a large university, and we work in the way that we are divided in different schools. And we have representation from each school in our reference group. Next picture, please. Here are some selections of the activities we worked with last year. So as I said, it was a new organization. We were also celebrating the 10 years of having platforms, and we were creating a movie, and I include information for you here. You can look afterwards. We were also had a seminar in Almedalen. It's a very unique thing we have in Sweden, where the politicians, we have a political week at our beautiful island, Gotland, and the location, Almedalen, is actually the stage where we speak. So we had one seminar there in collaboration with Sustainable Innovation. And the first picture here on the top is from that ship where we had our seminar. We also have a long tradition of having a PhD student summer course together with other universities in other countries, and we normally give that every year. And of course, we had the KTH Energy Dialogue in November. We have internal calls for proposals to help in starting up new collaborations, and we also started a new tradition of visiting different schools at the university to learn and get to know each other, and also to look at the different research facilities. What we also are working with is documentation. We have a journalist that help us to write nice articles from our big seminars, and I give you the link here, and you can find nice articles from our different events. So next picture, please. I selected one event. I showed a little bit more. This is again from our event at Almedalen, and we think it's an important task for us to communicate with the society about our research. So the next, please. From this year, we couldn't be in Almedalen, so we had a digital seminar, and it's a similar setup that we have today. And as I said, this is the only picture or activity where we were at the same stage. And I would like to give the word to Christoph now, please.
Yes, can go to the next. Attention. And yes, Energy Dialogue today we'll be talking about this. But before that, we also see that it stops at 3 o'clock, but it's not over after that. It's very important that we will go forward, and we have a virtual hall, a virtual exhibition hall, where all of us can meet and where you can see a lot of presentations, presentation of research, everything we used to see in the student building, that we could see researcher telling about with passion about their research, and this is exactly what we try to reproduce today. So there will be some information in the YouTube page, on the Energy Platform homepage. Just click on it and you can go further to this virtual hall where you can actually meet the researchers. But before that, there is a lot happening. Nina?
Yes, thank you. And I would like to go back to the picture before, just a brief comment, because we will also use Mentimeter. So we will ask you, because we're excited to know who you are, and also to take in your thoughts and your ideas on the energy transition. So you will see some codes.
Code is already
that's published for you, and
yes.
We're welcome. And in the next picture, please. And in the closure section, Christoph and I will try to give a feedback of your selection, and we are also very happy that we will announce 2 winners of the presentations, the best pitch presentation that you will be able to watch. The overall structure of the program is that we have 3 panels, and here you see the full program, and I will leave back the word to our moderator. Thank you, Willie. Thank you so much.
Lina and Christoph, thank you very much. We now proceed to panel A. And to start this panel, I give the screen to Robert Andrén, General Director of the Swedish Energy Authority. Please, Robert. I see a muted microphone on the screen of Robert. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. See if I have my slides up and running. Anyway, let me start by thanking for the invitation to join in this dialogue. It's a very important day and a very important conference and webinar, I think, because energy research and innovation is at the heart of the solutions we need so desperately when it comes to the climate challenge that we are facing. Sweden's emissions of greenhouse gases is approximately 1 to 2 per mil of the total global emissions. We must do much more than that, and we can do much more than that. 70 to 75% of the global emissions are energy related. So consequently, energy related research and innovation is more important than ever, perhaps. I would like to address this panel, these discussions on a perhaps slightly different angle, and that is the ambitions of becoming a gigaton country. Now, there are immense opportunities in becoming a gigaton country. A gigaton country obviously meaning that Sweden, through research, innovation, and exporting innovations and innovative solutions, can contribute to a global reduction of emissions of 1 gigaton out of the 60 gigaton reduction needed in order to reach the ambitions of the Paris Agreement. And I believe that Sweden has the components needed to actually succeed in doing so. But to do so, energy-related research and innovation is a prerequisite. My organization, the Energy Agency, wants to achieve this ambition. We want to take a lead in clean energy transition, and we actually think we have the possibilities, because being the biggest public funding body in energy research and innovation, I think we have a lot of tools and possibilities of making things happen. I will shortly describe how we work, but first, a concrete example of the potential that we actually can use. Change slide, please. And I hope that you see now is the situation when it comes to iron and steel sector. Now, I think that this slide shows two main messages. If we do not decarbonize this sector, the increase in emissions will be devastating. The other message is that the export markets, if you look at the countries, are huge. And there are enormous economic opportunities if you are an actor that have an innovation that can be put on the market, that can transform and decarbonize the iron and steel manufacturing globally. Well, the situation is very, very positive. And the same goes for the other huge sectors that are in need of decarbonization quickly. Petrochemicals, cement, concrete, aluminum, shipping, aviation, heavy-duty road transport. All of these need to be decarbonized and transformed rapidly. And that requires new technologies, new innovative systems, new business models, but also new and courageous attitudes among decision makers, and that be both within the industry, the financial market, the shareholders, and the political level, and that is worldwide. Sweden has a strong tradition in cooperating between public, private, and sectors and academia, and I think that that cooperation and co-creation will be a very important part in actually also to take advantage of the possibilities that lies in climate change challenge. And we have hybrid, for instance, as a clear evidence of the cooperation between us, public, private, academia, and within the private sector as well. So this way of thinking is a starting point for the Swedish Energy Agency in our work with research and innovation. Change slide, please. Of course, another starting point is the political ambitions that we have nationally, but also within the EU and globally. And the targets, the policy targets adopted by Parliament, for instance, in Sweden, as you can see, the 4 on top. But also that we are actually very close in when it comes to the basic foundation of what we want to achieve within the EU, for instance, you have the 3 pillars for our energy policy, the same for the whole EU energy market: ecological sustainability, competitiveness, security of supply. So we share the ambitions, the political ambitions, in many, many countries, and there are many, many national targets. That, of course, is also a point of departure for our work. Change slide, please. So in short, what do we do? Well, we are unique in a way that we are working throughout the whole chain of research and innovation, all the way to also export, trying to facilitate exporting of Swedish innovations. We work from basic research, where we have a collaboration with the Swedish Research Council, for instance, and through the various steps, the technology readiness levels, up to export promotion, focusing on some key markets: China, India, Indonesia, for instance, Germany, and the UK and the US, when it comes to the western part of the world. We also, being the largest public funder when it comes to energy research and innovation, with annually 150 million euros used in this various steps. We have programs focusing on the main challenges, the transport program and industry program. We also have a lot of centers of excellence, where we are now just about to go into a new period where we will make possible for centers of excellence to actually apply for support from our part when it comes to continuing to strengthening the cooperation between public, private, and academia. Having said that, when we are looking at the higher levels of the TRL scale, we are primarily focusing on innovators, small, medium-sized companies that actually have a possibility to reach the market at the end of the road, so to say, and also have an established already some kind of cooperations with other actors that are in need of being there in order to make it happen. So we're looking at the commercial potential. We're looking at the composition of the team, so to say, the innovators and the implementers, how how unique and innovative the product or the system or services, and if you have an impact, a positive impact on the energy system, of course, is a very important thing for us as well. So, change slide, please. Have we achieved? What are the numbers that we have achieved so far? Well, you can see here that what we have is some 200 companies that we're working with and have done throughout the years, looking at the 15-year period or so. We have financially supported them with 90 million euros. In total, 200 millions have been working in order for things to happen, because there is a 45% from us, 55% from the private sector. We have, out of those 200 companies, we have 85 that are ready to export actually products or systems or solutions. We have a value of almost 2 billion euros from 23 of those SMEs that have actually come very far in the market, also achieved financial support from private banks, private investors. We have created 1,000 jobs. All of that shows the economic potential. But I think that what actually makes this very impressive in a way is that it goes hand in hand also with combating the climate change. We see that 145 innovations have a potential to reduce roughly 19 times our annual emission of carbon dioxide equivalents. That is an enormous potential. Of course, that requires the products to be out there on the market, used large scale, and also used around the world in a sense that they, of course, are not today. But I think we have to shift our view on what is interesting to invest in, from only economic perspectives to economic and the climate footprint, so to say. And this is also through a concept called the avoided emissions framework, which is a concept and a calculation method that shows the climatic potential of an innovation. This has been launched international. We have a very good process together with the UN, together with other countries, together with a lot of organizations called the Net Zero Compatible Innovation Initiative, where we have gathered 1,000 international innovations with a reduction potential of 12 gigatons. And I think that those two processes, the avoided emission framework concept of calculating and this compatible innovation initiative, are also innovations, a new way of working together, a new way of creating together over boundaries. So these are all sounds very good, and the numbers are fantastic in a way, but has it mattered? Has it been any concrete results? Change slide, please. One click. That's one click. As you can see, we are in top nation when it comes to innovations. If you look at actual numbers, we're up there with the big countries, the real big major players. Could you click, please? And if you see the breakdown on per capita, we're actually top. This, of course, puts Sweden and Swedish innovation and Swedish energy and research innovation on the map, on the global map, and it will attract a lot of stakeholders. Click again, please. And I hope that you see now is a phrase from our colleague Jonathan Oxley at the World Energy Council. And of course, we are a top-ranking innovative nation. We have been that for years, particularly when it comes to green innovation, and we can show it. And that opens doors to the export, but it also opens doors to investments in Sweden that will create jobs and so forth. So it's a very positive spiral that we are seeing at the moment. Change slide, please. And this is my final slide, which are the 7 key areas for clean energy transition that we have now pointed out that we will focus on at the Swedish Energy Agency when it comes to research and innovation. We will put additional priority to these areas. We have presented them to the government earlier this year, and I'm very pleased to say that in the government's bill for the state budget that came a month ago or so, they gave us the continued confidence to focus on this work and the means to do so, both financially and with other tools. And I think that looking at these 7 key areas, besides this, I think everyone understands today that digitalization, electrification, and circular flows are key things, is that we have put extra focus on the social dimensions, the behavior, attitudes. We need to continue our research and finding innovative solutions also to change behaviors, change destructive patterns in society, to tear down structures that actually are undesired if we are to achieve the Paris Agreement and decarbonization. So I think that will be very important for us in the coming years. And the society is becoming more and more complex and linked together. So I think that we also need to look at the systemic perspectives and solutions. So rounding up, decarbonization and fossil-free society is not a primarily question of technology as much as changing habits and behaviors. And I think here, all of you PhD students that are listening here now, postdocs, researchers, and what are you in the system of innovation and research, you have all the possibilities to play an important role and actually even be a game changer. Since we have the possibilities, we have the momentum, and we also have most of the tools and a good collaborative nature in Sweden, so we can address the climate change and improve our societies at the same time. So that's what I believe, at least. Thank you so much.
Robert Andrén, thank you very much. And we'll now go, we have a few panelists in this panel, and the first one is Annika Wiklund, CEO of Vattenfall Distribution, and you represent business. would you say, can you promise us that you are taking the responsibility that Robert Andrén asked for in your daily business life?
Hello, Willie. I can promise for sure that this is one of our key topics all over the industry right now, because being sustainable, going into the decarbonization, this is not a sustainability strategy. This is our business strategy. I just want to make that very clear. I think there are so many opportunities here as well. So maybe we could discuss that a little bit.
I must warn you all that we are a bit short of time, but I do want to ask you, Annika, give us a few of your most impressive concrete examples. What does Vattenfall do to contribute to a cleaner world?
First of all, I would like to say that our purpose is to enable for everybody to live fossil-free within one generation. That's one of the things. We engage, for example, Robert mentioned it, in the hybrid project. I think that is quite interesting. Hybrid stands for, as everybody maybe not know, but hydrogen breakthrough iron-making technology. And this initiative, where we are active, is an initiative to actually develop the world's first fossil-free ore-based steel-making technology. There is one of the examples. Then we are also active in other areas, such as creating flexibility in the system. Coordinate is one of the other projects we are now piloting to enable more flexibility into the energy system, because that will be key. I always say that I don't think technology, that to innovating new things will be, that's not the point. It's making it work into the system and also making all these assets to work together when we need them.
And one more question to you right now, Annika. Sometimes we must realize there is a conflict between good business and environment. When you stand in a dilemma like that, can you assure us that it is environment that goes first?
I would say we take the perspective, what do the customers ask for us in the industry? They do not accept that we are, just putting the old technology first. I would not say that we are selecting always between financially business results and environment. This goes together. The customers want us to innovate. They are asking for fossil-free and decarbonized solutions. So that is the business. I would not say it's a conflict, rather that it's stepping up to the pace of change for us as the industry to deliver on time. But we will make that too.
Thank you. And I now go to Mikael Östling, Prorector of KTH. And you here, of course, represent academia. How can you assure us that your part in this important development is helping us to reach all the goals that Robert spoke about?
Well, I think it's common knowledge today that we need to be very careful in how we spend energy, how we generate energy, and how we spend it. So I think in order for a researcher today to get funding, you really need to meet these criteria that has been discussed so far. So I don't think it's a matter of not understanding the urgency of having a good research in energy-related topics.
And we're all aware of, for instance, Agenda 2030. Can you assure us that your part in this development is contributing enough to help the rest of all the chains that need to work here to reach at least most of the goals? I guess we can't reach them all.
I don't think anyone can say it is enough to meet all the goals, but I think we are concentrated very much so on solving problems from a scientific point of view, and some of the science that we create here will go into startup companies and business ideas, because we work so closely with the other international researchers, but also international companies. And Vattenfall is one of the companies which is also not just Swedish, but are very present in Europe and so on. So I think we are doing a fair deal, and we are investing heavily in the research infrastructure to meet many of the different goals. I mean, energy is a multidisciplinary field. You can mention most any field that has a relation to energy in some way. I mean, either you generate energy, or you store it, or you consume it in a very good way. And I think we have research in all these aspects, as we will hear later on today.
And Lina, you are even closer to concrete research. Give us hope. What do you see that can give us a cleaner environment in the near or far future?
Thank you so much, Willie. Well, I think it's important here that we see things both in short term and long term. That we see that we need to work on solving the system perspective that Annika is mentioning here. Where we used existing technology. We can see, for example, that we use batteries, and now we are developing new batteries building in Sweden, and we will include these batteries in transportation. We will use it for storage, but at the same time, we use existing technology in new applications. We also need to work long term, developing new materials, better chemistry, new applications. So we are working both long term and short term at the same time. And I think that's really important to reflect on the research. And Mikael were mentioning that we work in energy in a wide spectrum, where some of it is really to create the future. We never really know the future, so that is a challenge. The other thing I would like to stress is also that we always have to think international, that both in technical sense, my background is power grid. So from the power grid perspective, it's very important that we invest enough so we can be a part of the European system, and that we can export when we get more wind and we have hydro, etc. So that is very important. But the other thing is also that we try to solve the energy questions, that we think globally, that we do not limit ourselves to nations, because the energy questions are global. The energy system is global. So we have to look at that perspective. I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I now go back to Robert, Andrén, you hear now business, you hear academia. Do you feel sort of confident? Yes, we are definitely on the right path. The world we are handing over to our children will be on its way to be much better than what we see today. I hope you heard my long question, Robert. There you are.
Could you please repeat the question, Dini?
Yeah, sure. You've heard now business and you have heard academia. Do you feel now confident that, yes, we're definitely on the right path, and quite soon we will see many concrete results?
Yeah, I have a somewhat disturbance here at the moment. Okay. Are you hearing me at the moment?
Yeah.
Anyway, I am confident because what I see is that we are gathering up together, that we see the possibilities, and we actually also we don't only talk about the whole challenge of climate change only in the environmental perspective. We are more and more talking also about the positive economic and social effects of it, to an extent that I haven't heard before. We have also moved our understanding of it. It's not only a technology issue anymore, it's actually about behavior, structures. And we are coming together and finding circular solutions. And we are seeing that we are having more and more cooperation and co-creation among the actors. And that makes me very positive.
Okay, so I'll give now to each panelist, not to Robert, but to all the three panelists, just one sentence. If we physically meet, I hope, in 10 years from today, what kind of a world environmentally do you think we will see? And in what way is it different from what we see today? Just one sentence each. Annika.
I'm confident that we will see a much cleaner world. I will see that electrification has really been kicking in, and that we were proud of the brave decisions we took through the Electricity Commission, electricity strategy, and we aligned and cooperated.
Thank you, Mikael.
Yes, I think we will see lots of technical progress, but I'm not sure about our private behavior. I hope that people realize that we can take all these landmark technologies and do something nice, but all techniques that you invent can be used in a wrong way. But I'm very confident that we will improve much more.
Thank you. And Lina, finally.
Well, of course, I would say electrification, because I think electrification together with digitalization will really make a change in our society. But I also would like to underline people that we meet, because what we can see this year is that we are lacking our fantastic solutions we can find when we meet and gather. And I truly think that we will continue to do that. We will see that it's give us extra worth and benefits of sharing our knowledge and coming together. But technology-wise, we can see a huge development now. And it's really amazing, also in the medical areas and all things they can do. So I think it's a really interesting future.
Thank you, Lina, and thank you all the panelists. I wish we had more time, which we don't, so we need to go on. But thank you very much for interesting thoughts. So now it's time for panel B, Energy Research, Strategies, Challenges and Possibilities. No, sorry. Energy research and contributions to Agenda 2030. So first, Göran Lindberg, professor and leader of the Agenda 2030 project, PUSH. Please.
I hope you can hear me, but they won't let me share the screen for some reason.
We hear you, and I think your slides will be shown.
Okay, so they will be shown from there. Okay, fine. So we have had the privilege to start a new center on hydrogen called PUSH, funded by the Swedish ISSF. Next slide, please. So suddenly to see hydrogen on being talked about and in media was a bit of a surprise. So it's come very fast. We wrote this application about almost a year ago, and this summer, since this summer, everyone is talking about hydrogen. And Europe has very active plans for increasing the use of hydrogen. So until 2025, there should be a growth already then, and up to 2030, it will be really large growth in the amount of renewable hydrogen produced. So next slide, please. So the reason behind this is that hydrogen is seen as a link between renewable electricity production and a lot of other sectors, not only the energy sector, but seeing it that it can be fed into the gas grid, it can be used to produce electricity again. It can be used in industry, like the hybrid project just talked about. It can be used in buildings and also into the transport sector, and not only for road transport, but also for aviation, ships, and so on. So it's really seen as having a lot of wide applications. Next slide, please. So, as I said, it's seen as an important energy vector here. So what we want to do in this center, PUSH, we stand for production, use, and the production, use, and storage of hydrogen, is that we like to look at all three of these areas. We like to look at the production of hydrogen. We like to see how it can be efficiently stored, but also how it can be utilized in an efficient way. But of course, we also want to see how the hydrogen, if and when and where hydrogen fits into a wider perspective, the energy system, but not only the energy system, but the energy as the society as a whole. Yes, I guess I shift to the next slide here. So if you look on the left side, you see the traditional way of making hydrogen out of electrolysis. I should say that today, the majority of the hydrogen used industrially is not produced by renewable electricity, or not even by electricity. It's actually used from fossil fuels. More than 95% of the hydrogen today comes from fossil sources. The technology on the left, this is using alkaline electrolysis. That is the traditional electrolysis technique to use hydrogen. What you do is that you have a fairly nasty electrolyte of hydroxide solution, but you can use fairly conventional electrode materials like nickel and so on. The runner-up here is the thing on the right, which is more of a solid-state device. You're using a solid electrolyte. You can avoid this liquid and only use pure water. So what we will try to do in this center, this is to take this one further step, actually combine the two good properties of these two existing technologies into a third. So if we move to the next slide. Next slide, thank you. We move into what we call an ion exchange membrane electrolysis cell. So the anion is that we take the advantage of using this hydroxide solution, but we're putting it into a solid device like the PEM EC, and hopefully we can combine all the good properties from both of these devices. Of course, the disadvantage here, as you can see, is that this is a very unmature technology. It's in its early stage of development, but what we hope to be able to gain is that we can use less scarce metals, we can have higher efficiency, we can have still produce hydrogen with high purity, and we can have high current density, which means that we can bring the investment cost down for the electrolyzers. So we see that there's a huge potential here, but it's fairly early in the development. So next slide, please. The second focus area in our research, that is to store hydrogen. And hydrogen is, if you look at per weight, hydrogen has a lot of energy. The problem is that it also has a big volume. So if you take 1 kilo of hydrogen gas at atmospheric pressure, it will take up more than 11 cubic meters. And if you take a fuel cell car of today, it has you need roughly 1 kilo of hydrogen to drive 100 kilometers with a fuel cell car, which means that a normal car would need something like 5-6 kilos of hydrogen. And of course, you have to store it in a more efficient way than just as a gas. And the most common way is to compress it to high pressures. So today's cars, they're normally using pressurized gas at about 700 bars. There's also some using 350 bars. So that's a convenient way of storing hydrogen. Another alternative is to bring it down in temperature and make a liquid out of it. Disadvantage here is that it takes a lot of energy to cool it down, because it needs to be really cold, roughly down to minus 250 degrees. It makes the hydrogen much more dense, the energy much more dense. So that's, of course, an alternative. And looking at, for example, in aviation, this is one of the alternatives people are looking at. Both of these are, in some sense, quite mature techniques. So what we will focus on in this research project is on the third alternative, trying to look at alternatives to make what we call a chemical storage of hydrogen. That is that you combine it with some other molecule. It could either be an organic molecule where you, to talk a bit of chemistry, where you saturate the molecule. It could be like toluene, where you have a liquid form from the start, and it's also liquid when it stores hydrogen. Or it could be that you combine it, for example, with another gas, nitrogen or carbon dioxide, and then you could form ammonia or methanol. So this is what we will look at and see if and when this type of energy storage as a complement to the other techniques, if it fits in. The third part of the project is looking at the use of hydrogen in fuel cells. And fuel cells are already quite mature, even though we don't see many cars out on the streets, but it's been around for a while. And there are tough targets when it comes to efficiency and durability and so on. Also here, we like to go one step further, and we like to look at the possibility of bringing up the temperature of the fuel cell just slightly more than it is today. Today it's operating in a car maybe around 90 degrees. But if you go up to over 100 degrees, you hopefully can gain some things. You're producing water in a fuel cell. And if you're above 100 degrees, you will not form liquid water, you will form steam or gas instead. And that will be a lot easier to handle. Also, likely your catalytic activity will increase. And your efficiency likely also. The drawback is that you might be sacrificing lifetime, so degradation could become a bigger problem. So that's why we also need to look at new materials which are durable at this a bit tougher conditions. So that's the third part of our research project. So typical questions that we will address is that if we look at this new way or more, we could call it a future type of hydrogen generator based on electrolysis, is to see how can we tailor the molecular structure of this membrane that is separating the two electrodes, and what type of catalyst can we use in those systems. We will also look at suitable liquid organic hydrogen carriers and see how. One of the challenges, and was partly addressed already by the previous panel, is that if we're getting away from one type of energy system, if we start to look at new, like hydrogen, we don't want to bring in new limitations in the form of catalysts and so on, which are limiting. So we have to find solutions which are good for this.
I must ask you to wrap this up because we need to go on.
Yeah, I will finish. This is my last slide, actually, or second large. So yes, change slide, please. So we are. This is the team that is going to do this. We are groups here at KTH, and then we're collaborating with groups at Chalmers, Lund, Umeå University, and RISE. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Göran Lindberg, thank you very much. And the time has now come to Per Olsson, professor and leader of the project Sunrise. Please.
Thank you, William. So should I share or no, you will share? All right, very good. So I'm going to talk about the Sunrise project, which similar to Göran's is also funded by SSF, the Swedish Foundation for Strategic Research. Okay, please switch. So we received a 50 million crown grant from SSF, and this was awarded to the university consortium that builds that is Sunrise. So this is between KTH, Luleå Technical University, and Uppsala University. And the goal of this center, the Sunrise Center, is meeting the sustainable energy challenge of the UN Agenda 2030. The objectives for us is to design a lead-cooled research reactor that can be in operation by 2030 and pave the way for sustainable nuclear energy generation. And the means of our project and center is to form this center of the let's say the experts that are needed from these universities, and with a very significant in-kind contribution from national and international stakeholders, of which you can see a few of the logos down here. There are also other partners that have joined the project a little bit later on. So why do we do this then? Well, nuclear energy, as we see it, is one of the baseload capable low carbon power or even negative carbon, well, possible negative carbon power sources, because there are some techniques that can be coupled to it, that can be deployed in really large scale globally and thus effectively combat climate change. But one central point in the last years has been that large nuclear new build projects, they have not really been commercially competitive. this extended construction times and really high cost of capital are limiting. So there is some issues there and a lot of, let's say, arguments against nuclear in the future. But small reactors, we want to argue, and we think we can show that they really allow for scale economy benefits and much shorter construction times to really eliminate the biggest problem with large nuclear builds. And for these small reactors, we are betting on the lead coolant systems, because lead coolant is one of the ways to achieve passive safety in the most compact form, to make really small and compact reactors that can be transportable and built in factories. So LFRs, when I say LFR, I mean a lead fast reactor. This is a reactor that burns the uranium and plutonium and other actinides in a more efficient manner than the current generation reactors. And this is also suitable as a cornerstone for a future truly sustainable nuclear alternative, which would be the generation 4 type application, where we generate the fuel in the reactor and separate out the trash, so to speak, and get towards a long-term sustainable solution. So in Sunrise, we argue that the Swedish strategy towards a sustainable energy system that includes nuclear should start with the construction of this research and demonstration reactor. And we formulated a 3-stage process for this. So the first stage is to design and perform safety analysis of the research reactor and the supporting R&D that is needed on both materials and fuels. And this is the actual Sunrise project, stage 1 here. Then we have a second stage that we identify, which is to construct and operate an electrical mock-up reactor, basically to go through all the testing that is needed for an actual nuclear reactor afterwards. But this would be a testing facility, which is a little bit more expensive than the current project. And the third stage would be to license, build, and operate the research reactor. And as you see, stages 2 and 3, they are outside the scope of this SSF project, clearly monetary-wise. And they remain to be decided upon and to be funded. And this is, of course, open questions. So why lead then? So lead is the technology that we're betting on, so to speak. Well, lead has a number of nice advantages when it comes to nuclear reactors. First off, you can run a fast reactor. I didn't put it on the slide, but the fast reactor is more efficient at burning more of the elements than a light water thermal reactor can do. It can operate at ambient pressure, which is a good safety feature. There's no exothermic reaction with water like you would have for example, a sodium reactor. There's a very high boiling point, which means that we can eliminate certain types of accidents, and very efficient decay heat removal using natural circulation. Also, it forms chemical compounds with some of these volatile fission products that are the ones that cause the largest problems when we have nuclear accidents. So in the case of an accident, many of these compounds would be formed and thus not released to the environment. And it's also perfectly good insulator of gamma radiation. So this limits the exposure to, for example, staph and close components. Next, please. But of course, there are challenges. Why don't we have these reactors all over the world already? Well, it's a little bit difficult to work with high temperature liquid lead in reactor. First off, you can't look down into the reactor and see what's going on, not with your eyes at least. So you have to have inspection tools and instrumentation that can see through lead, so to speak. It has a high melting point, so you have to pass 327 degrees centigrade. And this is a little bit problematic or challenging because you have to reload fuel at high temperatures instead of at ambient temperatures. And you can have some freezing issues in the system if there is a local cold spot and coolant can freeze and maybe clog. So these are challenges that have to be met. But really kind of game-changing and technology-breaking challenge is the very high solubility of nickel that lead exhibits. So if you don't protect with some very efficient oxide layer, you can't really have a high temperature lead reactor. Chromia grows very thick and is mechanically unstable, and thus is dissolved quite fast into the lead. So alumina scale is what we have identified as a potential game changer. Next, please. So at KTH, in collaboration with companies and other universities as well, we have done a large range of, let's say, breakthrough research that leads us to be rather confident about this technology being viable. The development of advanced lead-tolerant steels is one of these. So you have a picture on the left here where you see the steel to the left, and then the whitish layer is an aluminum oxide that is rather thin. And this steel can operate at temperatures over 750 degrees centigrade. And if you put an ordinary stainless steel in such high temperature lead, it would dissolve rather rapidly and just disappear. So in Sunrise, we will do optimization, testing, and qualification of these steels and develop new ones. We also develop a new type of fuel with respect to the standard fuels that exist today. So uranium nitride instead of uranium oxides. So these nitride fuels, they have higher density, which means that you can make more compact reactors and have longer running reactors for the same amount of fuel, basically. So we have optimized technical processes to make these types of fuels. And in the Sunrise Center, we'll develop basically operation parameter models that can be used to license the use of such a fuel. So we have research on some critical components in the center. The pump impeller is one such. Lead is corrosive, as I mentioned, and it's also very erosive. It's a heavy liquid metal, so it will tear apart anything that is moving rapidly inside it. So we are looking at new materials for pump impellers, and we have a range of options there. And we will test pump impellers to push the lead through the system in a large-scale rig that will be built at KTH. The fuel cladding is a second critical component. So that's the tube that surrounds the fuel pellets, the uranium nitride. And clad materials that can be used in this high temperature, rather challenging environment have to be used. And there we again have good components and possibilities, but we're going to test them and do some separate effect experiments on wear and tear and corrosion and fretting. And the primary vessel itself, so maybe the most important safety component of the reactor. If you want to build a reactor within at least shorter time than 20 years, you have to use steels that are already qualified for nuclear use. And therefore, you have to use, for example, stainless steels, special grades. But they will not withstand lead at these high temperatures. So there we are working on overlay welding and surface coating of these steels. So in the project and the center, we have basically 5 technical parts. There are work packages. The first one is to perform the design and safety analysis of the research reactor, which KTH is leading. And then the 4 following packages are more technical. So we work on steel performance and testing, manufacturing methods and testing. And this is the part that has the largest amount of participants, and Luleå and Uppsala are leading that. And then the fuel development and building the test facilities, basically. So you can go to my last slide. So if we want to fast track sustainable nuclear energy reactors in the world, basically, and start in Sweden, the Sunrise project is kind of a kickoff for that. So we will start with, in the Sunrise project, what you can see in the yellow square up there, or rectangle, is the design of a demo research reactor and qualify components and manufacturing methods for use. Also some irradiation testing that we'll perform in Australia and at MIT. We'll also design the electrically heated facility that you can see as a parallel arrow underneath. But this is the stage 2 that I talked about in the beginning. And stage 3 is also outside the Sunrise project. That would be the licensing, construction, and operation of an actual research reactor. And below this stage 3, you have basically the potential and fast-tracked commercialization path for lead fast reactor technology in both Sweden and globally. So this, when I say optimal, I mean it's if everything actually works and clicks on time. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Per Olsson, for giving us that interesting presentation. There's one more speaker in this panel, and that is Tuula Terri, President of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering and Sciences. You've been nodding when you heard Per, I saw, so I guess you agree to much of what he said. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I come, as was mentioned, I come from the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, but before that I have been professor at KTH since '96, and I've been working quite a lot with bioenergy and things like that when I was still in research. So it's a very nice occasion for me to come back to the research and hear all your very detailed talks about the energy research that you're doing. If I can have the next slide, please. what EVA is, or the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering. We are a scientific academy, and we have been operating for about 100 years. So I'm going to take quite a different kind of approach, for the energy issues from what I have heard so far, because we are collecting the expertise of many different researchers and also industrial representatives, also public sector representatives from different societal sectors. At the moment, we have something like 1,200 elected fellows and also 250 member companies in our business council. So we're trying to form a kind of, not only trying it, but we are actually forming a platform for discussions, and we kind of like to think ourselves as a bridge builder between academia, industry and business, public sector and policymakers. And a lot of the work that we're doing is really directed to being able to give fact-based policy advice to the decision makers. We have a very strong focus on technological and economic development, contributing both to the competitiveness of Sweden, but also, of course, these days to the global sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. So if you think about the history, and if we look back in history of EVA for 100 years, we have always been about energy. We started after the Second World War, and the First World War, sorry, and then the questions were concerning about an energy crisis, how to replace peat with oil in the industrial processes. Quite pertinent also these days. And then I think we have been, along with almost all the energy transitions that Sweden has experienced, and not only because of the energy, sort of the global importance of the energy issues, but it's also because the Swedish industry has been and is still quite energy intensive. So we have forest and steel, mining, manufacturing, transports, and then this digital transformation that we are now undergoing hopefully will lead to more efficient use of all resources, including energy, but also will require quite a lot of changes in terms of electrification that Lina, for instance, already mentioned. And so today our challenge and our focus in our energy type of policy project is oil to renewables. We are talking a lot about energy efficiency and electricity. And the motivation for our work really is to see how we can make a kind of macroscopic analysis and recommendations so that Sweden can reach the climate goals that we have set ourselves, but at the same time provide energy at the levels which we still need to keep our economy going. So if you go to the next slide, and this is just a kind of a policy perspective of the ambitious goals that Sweden has for the climate crisis. We say 100% renewable electricity production by 2040 and zero net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2045. And then, of course, we are quite lucky because a lot of the renewables that we have at the moment are hydroelectric power because of the way Sweden looks geographically. Which together with nuclear is about 80% of the electricity that we have. And we can also see that now, as in many countries worldwide, but particularly in Europe, closing of older nuclear power plants means that we are going to have some, we have to replace the energy that we now have from nuclear by expanding to wind power and solar. And I think that if you look at the curve or the picture to the right, you can see that we are talking about quite a significant change in the climate related activities in Sweden. And then, of course, the question is for us: are we going to be able to really reach these ambitious goals? And so we see that the climate crisis has been influencing, making a radical change in the electrical systems in the world, because not only because of the technological development that you are now talking about, but also because the increased demand for renewable energy has led to falling prices of solar and wind power worldwide, and we can actually see that they can now compete with conventional power. If you go to the next slide, please. So some conclusions, and the way we work at EVA is that we form, we collect our expertise into these kind of policy projects where we always are relying on facts. So we kind of base our projects on scientific reports. I'm sure many of your reports have been at the hands of our project groups, and we try to get the numbers to match, so that we can make statements which actually are based on what we know and not what we hope. And we can say, I mean, sort of the main conclusion for all these energy projects that we have, we can say, yes, it is possible for Sweden to reach these ambitious goals, but we need to mobilize the entire society. And so we have been calculating how much more electricity and biomass, for instance, is needed until 2045 in order to reach these goals. And we can say that the energy consumption needs to increase by at least 50%, mainly in industry and in the transport systems. And we are also going to need quite a big increase in biomass energy, mainly in the transport sector, in order to come to reach these goals. And so, as I had said, I'm not going to talk at all about technological development, which you are covering excellently. It's been very interesting to listen to your talks. But we also need systemic changes. And I think this is almost with any transition. I mean, take lifelong learning or take digitalization or take any part of the sustainable development goals. We see that, collaboration will be the key. Different parts of the energy system, different stakeholders will need to really work together, and organizations, responsibilities, incentives, attitudes, behaviors, leadership, they all need to be put in place so that we can really come to this goal. I think education and training at the university setting, I don't need to be preaching about it, but I think that, it's very important that the education hangs around, hands with, or maybe leads preferably the labor market changes that are happening in step with this energy transition. And then behavioral changes also, that we have to actually have public acceptance for these necessary measures. So if you go to my last slide, please. What I would like to say that we had one conference about a year and a half ago, with 30 engineering academies around the world. And we were then talking about what kind of big transitions are happening in the world, and what are the most important measures that need to take place so that we will manage these climate goals and other sustainable development goals. And I think that, I want to conclude also this presentation to say that I think one concept that came out of those discussions with 30 different engineering academies was inclusive innovation. And I think that, it is not only enough that we collaborate within Sweden or within Europe, but we do have to also be able to collaborate globally. The problems are worldwide, and we have to make sure that the technology and the solutions that we're working with, that they benefit people no matter where in the world they live, because otherwise it will be socially, economically, and humanely very difficult to come to these ambitious goals. So thank you for your attention.
Tuula, thank you very much for your interesting lecture. And we now have Annika Stensson Trigell, Vice President for Research at KTH. Annika, you heard several interesting presentations. What goes through your head when you hear all this?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of what we are doing. The very, very nice examples that have already been shown here. Also that we show that at KTH we can work together with researchers from a lot of different disciplines to attack problems where we really need to add knowledge from different areas, but that we do it also together with other universities, internationally, partners with industry and like cities and so on, to put it into a context so that the solutions that we are working with is something that could be in use. And I think that is really important, so that what we can do can be used by a lot of people, so that it can be impact of it, not only a scientific paper or something like that, that it also will be something that can be useful.
Is there a risk that academia sometimes is a bit too theoretical and that not everything that is being researched on can be used practically, as you say?
Of course, and it should also. We should do research in a lot of different areas because we doesn't know beforehand what will be really useful. So we need to do both. We need to both explore very fantastic ideas, but also to really implement it and make it useful. So we need to have a mix of both of it.
And Tula mentioned education as one of the most important factors in this discussion. And at the same time, as far as I understand, your part of academia has some problems attracting young students. What's your take on that?
Well, I doesn't agree. I think we are really good in attracting young students, and it has been a debate for long. But I think for recent years, we really succeeded well. What we see now is that we have much more international recruitment of PhD students, but also in master level, and also for staff. So that means that we really need to be competitive. So that we need to do really good research so that we can attract the really good students to our university so that we can gain from the knowledge. Because also when the students require from us to really give the excellent education, it really forces us to do really excellent research, and that it's the same person that is a teacher and is a researcher, and that we can gain from that. And I think that is really important for us. So I think we have a good place here in Sweden for that, and that we are really attractive.
Thank you, Olga Kordas, Program Director for Viable Cities. Olga, you've heard now also several presentations. What's your comment?
Yes, I think thank you very much. A great event and a lot of inspiration. And I would like to say that, of course, this Agenda 2030 we are discussing now provides us with this intentionality and directionality of what we want to achieve, sustainable development goals and Paris Agreement, and when by 2030, 2040, 2045. So there are different goals. But actually what this intentionality and directionality gives us as well is we see a clear shift from in innovation policy and innovation and research policy from innovation for growth and global competitiveness to transformative change towards sustainability. Even though it's important for us to create a new lead markets of renewable energy, for example, still we see that the main goal and mission is reaching sustainable development goals. And for that, we need to have transformative system changes. And even though that we are very proud of working with technology at KTH, technological development is not enough. And it's very much with kind of in line with what Tula is saying, that we need to have this shifts, technological innovation, and also together with that, all the shifts in cultural discourses, in governing institutions, business models, financial instruments. And the big question for us, how do we do this as researchers at KTH? What competences we need and what collaborations we need?
And do you think there's a risk that society stresses technological innovation, too much and is not giving enough attention on other vital areas?
I think it's hard to say for the whole of the society. What
do you see in your daily work? Do you sometimes give this a thought?
Yeah, well, yeah. So I think that we are giving us a thought that why do we have so much of technology already there, mature technology, great projects that are staying as a project, as pilots and demonstrators, and we don't see enough of dissemination, diffusion, and replication and implementation in society. So what I say is that we need to develop these new technologies. Göran is talking about hydrogen, and so this is very important, but we need to think even more of how these technologies would be implemented in society and how do we kind of accelerate implementation and diffusion.
Annika, what do you say about this?
Well, I agree, and it is something that we really stress is also, so that it's something that all researchers really need to think about, both when they are searching for research funding, also when they are motivated for their career path and so on, to really think also about implementation, because it's something that we also need to put even more focus on.
And Göran, I guess you have focus also on implementation. I mean, that's part of your job, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we mustn't forget that maybe the most efficient way to implement new things is our students, by having them well trained, and they can be our disciples going out in the world and actually do a change. And I think in this time of transitions, I think the number of people who actually are have the right knowledge, that would be limiting for a country. So it's really essential that we have this very current education at KTH.
And Per, what do you say about this?
Well, first off, I fully agree with Göran there, and I think it's really good that we actually managed to attract such a good range of students, not only Swedish students, but also on an international level. I mean, in my field, we have an overweight of international students, let's say. We are students in our master program from, I think, 8 or 9 different countries, and it's a very nice mix to work with, and it's also very interesting to see how many of them stay in Sweden afterwards. They like the Swedish society, and they are experts, and they join society here.
Even on a day like this in November, when they warn us about storms.
Even on a day like this, exactly, when we show our best.
Then research must be very good to compensate for that, I must say. So we're going to conclude this session, but I would like also in this session, one sentence each. This is what I would like the audience to remember from what I have said during this session. It's hard, I realize that one sentence, but we'll start with Göran. What do you say?
I think we're heading for a perfect storm, and not only outside today, but in society as a whole. And I think to really make this transition, we must see that it's spanning over all different fields. It's in industry, it's transport, in the energy sector, and I think this is a huge challenge and very different from how we usually think. So I think this is important to remember.
Thank you, Göran. Per?
I think we have to focus on decarbonization and electrification, and we need to use all available sustainable sources to do this.
And Tula?
Inclusive innovation. I think, it is very important, and I'm really impressed by the way you describe, how the societal impact is going to come, and the way I always get so proud when I say that, the most important impact of the university is the students, which are educated well. But when I work now with these international academies and I see what is happening in other countries, maybe not the least in Africa or countries like that, I think we have to bear responsibility also for the global development and the fantastic technology development, and the ideas that we develop in Sweden need to also benefit other countries. Otherwise, the resistance and the kind of conflicts are going to be too big, so that the big picture is getting lost. So inclusive innovation is my word.
Thank you, Tula. Annika?
Well, first of all, I agree with all of you. It's really a lot of important parts there. I want to stress this multidisciplinary, that we need to work together with a lot of different stakeholders to be able to solve the problems, and also to look at different areas. As I said, with the platforms, we have the energy platform, but we also have the transport and the material and life science technology and the industrial transformation. And a lot of the solutions and challenges could be learned from each other. So we have a lot to learn from knowledge exchange, also from different areas, to really quickly go from new innovations to something that we can use in other areas.
Thank you, Annika. And finally, Olga.
Yes, I would say innovation and research for increasing social capital is extremely important. So innovation and research for thriving of people and environment.
And that concludes this part of this afternoon. So thank you all speakers for taking part here. We now continue with panel C, overview of energy research centers. And I must stress you have at the most 5 minutes each. And the first one to prove that you know how much 5 minutes is Linda Olofsson, Director of Swedish Electromobility Center. Please.
Thank you, Willie. Can you hear me fine? Thank you. So, good afternoon. And as Willie said, I have only 5 minutes to give you a very short introduction of our center, Swedish Electromobility Center. Swedish Electromobility Center is much more than a competence center. It's a national knowledge hub and vibrant network with competence to realize electrification on a large scale. Our goal is to be a world-leading research center in the development of sustainable transport. The backbone of our center is our theme areas, which I would like to go through fairly quickly though, but to give you an idea of the broad technical scope of our center and also the national interests in it. The 5 theme areas pretty much defines the challenges that we must address in order for electrification to reach its full potential. So please, next slide. The first theme one is system studies and methods. Here the focus is on the onboard system of the vehicle. The goal is to develop effective methods for model-based systems engineering for optimization of the vehicle systems. The theme is led by Jonas Fredriksson at Chalmers University of Technology and Lars Eriksson at Linköping University. So next slide, please. Theme 2, electrical machines, drive systems and charging. Theme 2 deals with power electronic traction converters, electric machinery, static and dynamic charging, and deals also with optimization of the energy density and torque of the electrical machines, but also the environmental impact of the materials and usage of these systems on board. And the theme leaders are Francisco Marquez in Lund University and Oskar Wallmark at KTH. And right now, Luca Pretti is acting theme leader. Next slide. So theme 3 is energy storage. It addresses the energy storage components on board, primarily the batteries, but since we started our 4th phase last year, we have also included fuel cells. The focus is on the questions related to the application of vehicles. So it's mainly energy density, aging, diagnostics, and performance, but we do not research new chemistries. The theme is led by Daniel Brandell at Uppsala University and Göran Lindberg at KTH, who you just saw in the earlier panel. Theme 4, electromobility. The next slide, thank you. Theme 4 is electromobility in society. It addresses the interplay between technology and users. It measures also the resource availability and circular economy and the assessment of environmental impact and resource use using life cycle assessment. Lately, logistics and business models have also received attention. The theme leaders are Magnus Flinge from Linköping University and Scania, and Anders Nordlöf from Chalmers. The next slide. And the theme 5, which is actually the most relevant for this forum, is the interaction between vehicles and the grid. It addresses the question where, when, and how should we charge our vehicles? An important issue when electrification takes off and we get a larger electrified vehicle fleet. How will the capacity of the grid meet this demand? The theme is led by Mikael Lantz at Lund University and Cecilia Boström at Uppsala University. So these were our 5 theme areas, and I would like to thank you all for listening to this very short introduction, which I think was less than 5 minutes. And I want to just show our partners, and together we are almost, we are more than 20 partners that together we create sustained mobility. Thank you.
Linda, thank you very much. Next speaker is Claes Engvall, Director of Swedish Gasification Center. Please. Please turn on your microphone, Claes. We don't hear you.
Sorry for that, but thank you very much for the introduction. But I can see that the slides are not mine. It's actually for the Swedish Center of Nuclear Technology, which are presented here. So I cannot. So I think they have actually selected the wrong presentation.
Okay. Either if the technician can find your presentations quickly, or maybe. Or that would
better to change. So Maria can take it, and I take it after her stand.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you for.
Yeah.
So I now give the screen to Maria Pokari, Director of the Swedish Center for Nuclear Technology. Please.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to SKC, which stands for the Swedish Center for Nuclear Technology. My name is Maria Pokari, and I am the director of SKC. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what is SKC? Essentially, I would say that SKC is a bridge between the academia and the industry. And basically, SKC connects the Swedish nuclear power industry and the 3 universities in Sweden that provide the vast majority of research and education opportunities within the disciplines of nuclear technology. We help fund research and education at KTH, at Chalmers, and at Uppsala University. And I would say that the vast majority of research that we fund is carried out by PhD students and postdocs at these 3 universities. SKC's activities are financed by 5 organizations in Sweden. These are the 2 nuclear power plants, Forsmark and Ringhals, which are majority owned by Vattenfall. Then the nuclear power plants at Oskarshamn, the Swedish nuclear regulatory body, SSM, and Westinghouse, Sweden. Next slide, please. So one could ask, why do we have SKC? What is the purpose? And I would say that there are 2 main reasons for SKC to exist. The first of them is to make sure that we help through research the industry find answers to some of their most critical questions, but also to secure the availability of critical competence down the line. And both of these reasons are extremely important to make sure that we can operate nuclear power plants sustainably, safely, and efficiently for a long time. Next slide, please. Yes. So SKC's work is organized periodically. And we are currently at the end of the first year of a 4-year cycle. And during that cycle, SKC will be financing research and education with 52 million Swedish crowns. And now, depending on your background, it might seem like very little or like quite a lot. But I think that instead of the sum, we should focus on what the effect of this investment is. And then after 2 calls for project proposals, SKC has decided that within this working period, we will be financing 7 PhD positions and 2 postdoc projects. And in addition to that, we will be spending 16 million Swedish crowns at these 3 universities over the period of 4 years to enable continuation and development of nuclear education. And then obviously all of these activities, could you just please go back? Thank you. And all of these activities obviously will also contribute to other benefits, such as peer-reviewed articles, conference papers, theses, new IP, and so forth, which we don't really measure. And I don't have a study that would show what the return on investment is for every crown that SKC has spent. But I can promise that from the industry's point of view, every crown spent is an investment rather than an expense. Now you can change. And with this slide, I would like to then briefly give you an overview of all the projects that we are financing during this work period. And as you can see, out of the 9 projects that we are financing, 3 will be carried out at KTH, 2 at Chalmers, and 1 at Uppsala. And in addition to that, 3 out of the 9 will be carried out jointly between KTH and Chalmers, which is something that we both welcome and in practice support at SKC. So I invite you all to take a look at the project presentations made by our researchers. Next slide. And with that, I would simply like to thank you for the attention and the time, and make sure to find us on social media and email in case of questions. Thank you.
Maria, thank you very much. And I now need to check with the technician if the presentation of Claes Engvall, Director of Swedish Gasification Center, is are his slides next? Can you put up the slides of the next speaker, please? Yes.
Yes.
So, Claes, go for it.
Thank you very much. Finally. Good afternoon, all of you. Before I start, just to make a short introduction to the Swedish Gasification Center, SFC. I will say that I'm sitting actually in the laboratory of our pilot units we have for research and preparing for a very exciting test campaigns that's supposed to start today, but we will start next week and have a after a long time of actually doing nothing because of the COVID-19 situation. Don't change. Go back, please. Anyway, I am acting as a research node leader for the center, which is a distributed center with the major universities, KTH, Luleå University of Technology, and Chalmers. Next slide, please. The center is distributed, and the aim is, of course, to strengthen and coordinate in Swedish gasification research and development in different technology areas, because there is 3 main different technology areas in gasification we are researching in Sweden today. One is the Luleå, where you have entry and flow gasification. At KTH, we are focusing mainly on fluidized bed gasification and also on cleaning of the gas produced in the gasification. And at Chalmers, they focusing on dual bed gasification, which was related to the go-by-gas demonstration plant in Gothenburg, which is still there in Gothenburg. Another thing is that we aim at fostering a new generation of gasification competence in the Swedish academia and industry, and also serve as a national network for knowledge transfer and problem solving within the field of gasification, and also a platform for international collaboration, where we are actually joining a lot of different societies outside Sweden also, and spreading the information inside the center. And finally, facilitating commercialization of advanced biomass gasification. Next slide, please. The center is distributed, and the annual budget we have is 58 million Swedish krona per year, which are distributed evenly among all these 3 research nodes. And of course, the support is shared between the academia, industry, and the Swedish Energy Agency, which are 1/3 each. We are a lot of partners in the center. We are 18 to 20 companies, as you can see down, 8 universities and 1 institute. We are 30 to 35 senior researchers, around 35 to 40 PhD students actually funded by part of the money for doing research. So we are a quite large, I would say, center. And next slide, please. This gives a picture of the scope of the research. And you can see here, we see a schematics of a gasification process system, where you from the left see we have the feedstocks, which can be mainly different residues, like forest residues, agriculture residues, which we primarily want to convert in a chemical process at high temperatures to a raw gas consisting of molecules we can use for synthesis of, for example, transportation fuel or for chemicals, or also for generating power in an efficient way. And the scope of our research is, of course, we have the 3 different gasification technologies, but also the gas cleaning, which is the thing we are actually researching inside the center. Next slide, and the final one. And our long-term vision and aim is, of course, to somehow contribute to circular use of the resources, where biomass or renewable sources is added to the circle, where compensating for the loss, so we reduce actually the use or not using carbon from fossil resources. If you want to know more, you can find us in the web link down there. So take a look there, and you will find a lot of information on the different partners and what we are doing. Thank you for your attention.
Claes Engvall, thank you very much. And the last presentator in this section is Rajiv Totapillil, Director of the Swedish Center for Smart Grids and Energy Storage. Please.
Thank you very much, Willie. I'm going to present the Swedish Center for Future Electric Grids and Storage. This is a cooperation between KTH and Uppsala University, along with the industry partners Hitachi ABB and other power transmission as well as distribution companies, along with some material company like Haganas and some startup companies from KTH and Uppsala University. Next slide, please. So here we are trying to develop new knowledge and technology that are required to create the future electric power grid, so that we can meet the goal of 100% renewable electricity production by 2040. And one peculiarity of the center is that it tried to bring together various disciplinary areas like power systems, material science, electromagnetics, physics, and information technology for this common purpose. So we are in the 9th year of the 10-year lifespan of the center. Next slide. So these are the research areas within Swegrids. Now, if you start from the right bottom corner, new materials for electric grids and energy storage, where we first look into various electrical insulation system, different type of magnetic materials without the use of rare earth, different type of contact materials, and materials that goes into energy technology. And from there, we move to the left. Many of these materials are used in new type of controllable power components that goes into the grid. it can be for new power electronics like silicon carbide, new type of converter technologies, new type of switching, extremely fast switching, handling frequent interruption of high currents, diagnostics and monitoring, asset management, and different type of protection equipments and systems. Then we go up, these things are used into the actual transmission and distribution grids, where the grid is very flexible and it can integrate seamlessly intermittent energy productions from solar as well as distributed energy production, solar, wind, and other type of energy production. And we also handle electricity markets, pricing, microgrids, local grids, security and reliability of power supply. Then moving on to digitalization of the power grid, where cybersecurity becomes very important, and different type of sensors and online monitoring for reliability of the power supply, and big data analysis that are required for the grids, communication system, and different type of new energy services for the consumers. So we complete the complete value chain or technology chain is completed in the center. And around 80 PhD and postdoc projects will be completed, and we have already completed 50 of them, and 30 are running. Next slide, please. Now, there's a steering board with representative from major partners who are evaluating the project proposal from the university groups and recommend the financing. And every project will have an industry participation. So the supervisory team consists of not only the university, the main supervisor, but then an industry supervisor is also present. And reference group consists of people from both university and industry. And we also have an international scientific reference group who meets once in a year. And additionally, we finance the students to go and spend up to 6 months of research visit, 6 months of research exchange with any other group around the world. So that that international experience students are getting, and the center is benefited by the development that is happening around the world in electrical engineering, power engineering. And we also support the students to present their work in international conferences. Next slide.
And I must ask also you, Rajiv, now to wrap it up, please.
Yeah, this is the last slide. So I am finished. Thank you very much.
Okay, it worked. Thank you very much, Rajiv. And the time has now come for conclusion with Lina and Christoph. Please, Lina and Christoph.
Hello again. Thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. And we're very grateful that all these distinguished speakers have been with us today. So we are now ready to prepare a closure for the seminar today. And we have actually a compact program even for the closure. So in the closure, we will try to include some feedback from you, the audience that have participated.
Yeah, and we see that most people come from academia, from KTH, and we are very happy to have you around and to keep that. Maybe we can look at the next one. So interest, a lot in everything, actually. I think very few choose only one sector, and most of them actually understand that actually energy system is so complex, so many interlinks, that actually we should handle all of it at the same time, and I think this is very nice. So, more about this. Yes, and the Ministry of Industry seems to have a lead, very tight lead compared to the others. But I think, yes, we heard today that industry is very important for Sweden. It's one of the great Swedish assets, and definitely we should work to make it carbon free. So I think this looks very good. And I let you see by yourself all the wise words that you have been writing into that. And maybe we should use them to try to look at the future. Try to look at future workshops or seminars next year in the energy platform. What do you think, Lina?
Yes. And specifically, we would like to welcome you to one workshop that we already have planned. It will take part on the 26th of January. I will soon will include a link for you for the registration. And here I would like to underline, as I think many of you in Sweden are aware about, that there are two new governmental tasks. One task has a purpose to create a plan for Sweden on how to work on electrification. And then it's a commission that will work specifically with how we can accelerate the electrification in transportation. And I'm very happy that at the seminar today we have two members of that committee. It's Annika Wiklund from Vattenfall and also Linda Olofsson from SEC Center. So in those governmental work, of course, we as the Research Society would like to contribute, and therefore we have arranged a workshop on the 26th of January. And you will get an invitation, more information about that workshop. We also have another item here, and it is that we would like to welcome you, all the audience, to take part in a virtual research presentations, because we have prepared before the seminar and asked researchers, both at KTH and with our collaborators, the different centers you've seen here today, to submit their recorded video presentations. And based on those, we have also made a selection of the two best pitches. So here come my thanks pictures. So here you could see how it looked like outside the Tekel Museum in this morning.
Before the rain and before the wind.
Next page, thank you. So this is a summary of my presentation here. So we already seen the learnings and the workshop on the 26th. I also would like to mention that we have already now decided on the date for our next event. It will be on the 18th of November next year, so please save the date. So now we have the next phase. And as all of us know, we have been forced to work digitally this year. And sometimes, I think most of us have learned that it actually has its benefits. And we have asked, as a preparation for today, all our researchers to prepare for you material so they can continue the dialogue with you. So soon, Christopher will introduce you to, here's my presentation on the workshop. I already said this, so we can take that. Thank you. Yes. So now Christophe will invite you to the virtual exhibition that will continue, and you decide when you go there.
Yes. So I think what we try to recreate is this feeling that we go into the arena, into the room, we see many posters, many pitches, many researchers, many good ideas. And we have built basically a virtual exhibition hall. It's somewhere here in Stockholm. Doesn't matter where you are. You can go there via your computer. The link is here on the screen. If you look below the YouTube clip, you will also find the links, and you can just click on it. This will bring you to our platform homepage. All information are there. All these pitches are available also on YouTube if you want. But I would say first, try to get into the virtual room. It's like a video game. All instructions are there. Download it. It's pretty easy to get running, and you'll be able to navigate. We have some instructions to help you navigate if you're not too familiar with video games. If you are, I think you will enjoy it even more. And here are the presentations. And actually, I would think two of them get a special treatment today.
Yes. So we have you saw in the beginning that we have the reference group to work with us in the energy platform. So prior to the meeting today, we have been looking through all the presentations, and we have selected for you what we have defined as the best two video pitches. So as a closure of the event today, we will be very happy to play these recordings for you. And then we want to thank you all again, all speakers and everyone involved to creating this event today. And we hope to see you next year.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to
I hope you guys like Swedish wine, because the chances are Sweden will be one of the emerging wine regions of 2050 based on the trends in rising temperatures. My name is Denise, and I work with clean energy technologies as a PhD researcher at KTH. And today I want to talk about the nemesis of our civilization, carbon dioxide. World is now switching to net zero emission goals in order to limit the rise in temperatures. However, much of the world is still operating in the old ways. For example, since the beginning of COVID-19 crisis, a total of $200 billion were invested in fossil fuels. If we operate in this existing energy structure, our climate goals are far from reach. Power plants and industrial manufacturers are still the main contributors of carbon dioxide emissions. And let's face it, our dependency on carbon-based energy and goods won't go away overnight. And it takes time to transform these industries at a global level. This brings us to the question, how are we going to get these guys to play nice? Or let me rephrase the question. How can we monetize carbon dioxide so that those who don't play nice are motivated to capture or recycle it? The problem with carbon dioxide is that it's a tough player, and it's very expensive to separate it using the conventional carbon capture technologies. And there is a big barrier to chemically tweak it out to make things out of it. Electrochemistry offers us an efficient path to skip the old beaten track and turn carbon dioxide into a raw material instead of waste. I work with a special type of reversible fuel cell that uses molten carbonate as the magic ingredient. The reversibility and the carbonate content is what makes the technology the silver bullet of carbon dioxide separation and recycling industry. In the fuel cell mode, the cell can separate carbon dioxide to high concentrations while producing energy. In the electrolysis mode, the cell can produce hydrogen and valuable chemicals from the exhaust of, for example, a power plant. For my PhD work, I concentrate on the electrolysis orientation of the cell, working with the exhaust from a biogas production plant. The idea is to reduce the content of carbon dioxide and water from the exhaust gas. While doing this, we're discovering the abilities of this technology to make it a key player for the carbon dioxide separation and recycling scene. Through the results of our work at KTH, we will configure the prime performance of the fuel cell for carbon dioxide applications. Scientific knowledge of the cell and carbon dioxide separation orientation can help us make it become a demanded technology to reduce emissions effectively and affordably. Together with future industrial partners, we can use molten carbonate fuel cell to reduce point emissions significantly by monetizing carbon dioxide separation and recycling. And that's how we make them play nice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this presentation about enhancing the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure. My name is Fredrik Heiding, and I'm part of the Svegrids project, making a PhD at KTH in Stockholm. So, let's get started. What is critical infrastructure? Well, critical infrastructure is everything that's required for society to function, or at least parts of the infrastructure required. So things such as roads and power plants and hospitals, and of course, in recent times, communication networks and channels and things that facilitate our internet access. And it is of course important that these things are up and running as much of the time as possible. So we got very good at building safe systems that maintain operability for these infrastructures. That is very good. Luckily, we can often trust that the electricity, for example, keeps on running. In the last years, however, this changed a little bit. So as technology advances, we introduce new types of technology, such as smart devices, and we connected networks and infrastructures that previously been analog. They've been connected to networks, such as the internet or other networks. And this is very good, introducing smart devices. You can make systems more efficient and in other ways enhance your technology. But it also introduces a problem. When you connect things to networks, you expose communication channels and they can be hacked. So a person who does not have permissions could enter the system and launch a cyber attack. And this is, of course, very bad. We don't want anyone to hack our critical infrastructure, but do this really happen? Do people attack it now that it could be possible? It turns out they do. There's a massive amount of cyber attacks being launched all around the world, and unfortunately, critical infrastructure is no exception. So we see a ton of examples, such as the huge Norwegian energy manufacturer Hydro. They were targeted last year, 2019, by a massive cyber attack, encrypting their data. They couldn't access their own data, suffered losses from up to 600 million Norwegian kroner. Ukraine had it even worse. The 2015 power grid attack was a computer software attack, a cyber attack towards the electricity manufacturing system in Ukraine. And the cyber attack was successful, rendering power plants to go down and 300,000 people to be without electricity for up to 6 hours. This is Ukraine in December, in sometimes pitch dark, minus 20 degrees conditions. That's very bad. Now, if you're a foreign country wanting to, for example, attack someone, starting to cut off their electricity for 6 hours in December is a quite good starting point. So this happened, and we must defend ourselves. So how do we stop it? Well, it turns out to be hard. I don't think you can stop it, because technology advances and cyber attacks are, unfortunately, probably likely to keep coming and coming. So what we must do is hone our defenses. We must basically run to stand still, because attackers get better and better. We must innovate the defense and keep researching the defense so we can protect ourselves. At KTH, we do exactly this. We spend enormous resources to research things called threat modeling, to make a simulation of a system so we can find, for example, the attack paths to a power plant and secure them before an attacker can attack them. And we work with offensive security, so trying to hack our own systems, hacking our own power plants in order to make them more secure and safer so that we can find out flaws before attackers find them. If you're interested to read more about this, please check out my KTH profile, or we were recently featured in the Swedish news channel SVT Rapport for hacking a car and showing how you can prevent your car from being hacked. So feel free to check out that one as well. And thanks for your attention.